So let me take this particular security policy for domain, which is going to be adding government IDs. And where this particular task comes in is I go to actions for Carol Lee and I come to add government identifiers. And usually for a normal person, this is done by either an HR partner or the employee as self. They are the people who will be usually doing this. And I go to edit personal information. Oh, I already have a personal information change that is happening. I'll just go and cancel this. I don't want this to mess around with ours. Right, I go back to Carol Lee, go to her profile. And if you see this particular domain says person data, add government identifier. Change personal information. So let me see if you have the government ID as well. Let me go to person data and I will go into something which is available over here. Let me go to a date of birth. Yeah, this is better. All right, because I want to explain one simple concept for all of you to understand it. See, let me pick this particular domain. Now here the domain is going to be person data, date of birth. And this is actually going to be deciding who has access to the date of birth of people and who can modify this particular information. That is what is driven, or this is what is actually deciding who can do what. All right, those who can view this particular information. Some of you may ask why I do not see the employee as self over here. That is because employee as self is actually part of these security groups and the ISSGs and everything. ISSG is a little more complex term. It's more like a group of securities. You understand that it's a group of securities. So that is where it is all coming from. So person data, personal data, and then I have date of birth. This is the business. This is actually the domain which drive this. And when I go across to securable actions, I click on the number 5 over here. I have several tasks over here. If you see edit row for edit date of birth, active view page, this is one of the tasks I have. And I may have other tasks which are part of my date of birth. So for example, like I said yesterday, if I do not have view and modify access, I will not be able to edit this particular information. And all of this is driven by this particular domain that I have over here and the accesses and security privileges which come in from this domain security policy. And likewise, I can also make changes to another person's domain. So let me open Logan McNeil's profile. All right, because it is an I'm taking Logan McNeil because I do not want to carry the transaction as an employee itself. Rather, let me as Carolee, let me go and modify the information. So I go across to personal data and let me go across to edit personal information. Oh crap. Cancel all of these. Let me go ahead and cancel all of this because I don't want to show that to you as an employee, but rather I want to show this as another user so that it's going to be more helpful for you. This is completed. Huh? Is that business process completed? Shows in progress. All right, now I should be able to do it. Now I'm as Carol Lee, and I'm going across to Logan McNeil's information, and I'm going to be editing her date of birth information. All right, like I said, this particular domain is going to decide whether I have the access to edit the personal information, and more specifically the date of birth information of Logan McNeil or not. And again, this particular pencil icon that you see over here will be visible only to those who have the modify access. If I do not have the modify access, I will not be able to edit it, whereas I'll be only able to view this information and do no other action. This is number one. And number two, say for example, if you want to see the domain which is actually controlling this particular task, how do I go about with this? For example, you've come over to change personal information and you have this date of birth, but you see that this particular date of birth is showing only as view and not editable. How will you debug this? For that, we have a specific screen available which is going to help you out with this. Please remember this very well. This is very, very important. I just type view sec for sec, which is called as view security for securable item. And we call it in our own jargons as view sec for sec, which is view security for securable item. So what this effectively does is, here if I say date of birth, or I can even say change date of birth, based on this particular securable item that I'm going to be entering, it is going to give me all the list of tasks and the domains that are going to be linked to this. I will repeat. I come over to view security for securable item and I type the task as change date of birth, and it is going to give me all the list of actions which I can do for this particular one. Or it is a reverse. Instead of going from my domain, what if I do not know the domain? I only know the task name. The task name I chose was edit personal information or date of birth. All right, and I come in the reverse order over here. Clear on this particular page? And what is the task that I use is called as view security for securable item, or in short, we say view sec for sec. And even in the task, you just in the search, you just have to type view sec for sec, you're going to get it. It's a very, very simple task. And with this, I will be able to find out what is the domain linked to the specific task or page, the action that I want to do, whether I have the relevant permissions for it or not is also going to be available. For example, instead of I'm not going to say change date of birth, for example, I'm just going to say only date of birth, so that it's going to give a more exhaustive list for me. I'm just putting it as only date of birth so that it's going to give me a more exhaustive list. Let's see what comes up, because we have only around 9 actions or tasks over here. Why I want to go with this is, see, I have so many tasks over here. Why I want to highlight this is, like I said earlier, there are multiple options for you to edit or view the same information in Workday. It is not necessary for me to go only based on one particular way. I can do it in one way. You can do it in your own way as well. So there are multiple options and it depends on how you want to do this. All right. Say, for example, first one, it shows correct my date of birth, which is going to be specific only to me, which is as an employee, will I be able to edit the date of birth information or not? Why I'm having this particular task over here is because certain organizations may restrict this. They may say that if you want to edit your date of birth post hire, raise a ticket to your support team, and your support team is the only person who can do this. You cannot edit your information by your own self or without any checks and balances. And if I click on this security, it is going to give me all the relevant details about which functional area. Why I'm repeating it is because you just need to tie this down to where this is actually flowing to. And date of birth may flow into multiple areas. It may flow to your benefits section, because in your benefits section you need to determine what is your age based on your certain privileges, including your medical, vision, dental. All of this could be determined. It could also flow across to your payroll information, based on which you may have some retiral plannings and everything for your payrolls and deductions and everything. You may also, and also your taxes and everything for your payroll. And you may also, that may also flow across to your own HR system, so where your master data is going to reside. That is why this particular functional area is important. And if you see this particular screen over here, it has multiple things. See here, view security for securitable item, correct my birth date. As an employee, I'm going to be correcting this. And what is this? This is a task, and this is not any business process event or any kind of domain sec policy. And again, where is this menu available? It is available on my personal data and correct my birth date, which means if I log in as Logan McNeil, or if I'm going to log in as Carol Lee, I will be able to see this in this particular option if I have the access to it. If I have the access to it, I will be able to see it over here in personal data option or menu, correct my birth date. Clear? And again, what are the business process securities and the relevant options which are available? So if you see over here, this is part of a business process security in the functional area personal data, which means this is available in my change personal data business process. If you guys want to explore that, you can explore it as well. We have a business process called as change personal information. And if you look at all the initiating actions and everything that we discussed earlier, you will be able to understand this a little bit more. And the functional area is personal data. And here it says security group needed. Why it says security group needed is because only those people who have the access to this security group, be it Bhavi HR administrator, employee admin, JMP, HR manager, and JMP user based, only these security group based users can perform this particular initiating task for my business process. And what exactly is the purpose of view security for securable item? Because this is something which you can expect anywhere you go, and this is a very, very common debugging that we do. This is a very common debugging that we do as well. The moment we say that if a user is going to report that he's not able to view an action, perform a task, anything, be it a business process level or at a domain level, this is the option that we go into. We go to view security for securable item or view sec for sec. Even in your interviews, this could be a possible question which comes across. And if you're going to say view sec for sec, that is where I would start my debugging. You're good. Clear? The moment if a user is going to say, I'm not able to access a particular domain, I'm not able to access a particular business process action, etc., etc., this is the place that I would rather come into. You can go to your business process, and if you want, you can go to your separate domains as well. If you know the domain names, you can go to that as well. But this is at a high level where I would come. Why? Because this contains all the information that I need here. And again, probably you need to focus more on the functional area over here. And I took date of birth over here because it's very, very simple. And if you see, I have so many different tasks over here. I have one option over here which is called as revise date of birth, which means it is an editable, and this is at a tenant non-configurable functional area. For now, remember that it is a very, very high level. At a macro level is where we have this tenant non-configurable area, and it is available to all users as a part of the domain. And next, as a part of the business process security, date of birth correction in the function area of personal data, and the same change personal information business process. And don't go into language restrictions for now because it's related to all your translations and everything. And let me go across, pick something else over here. Time of validation, active, these are all reports. Your date of birth event. Okay. Let me put this one over here. Because, okay, date of birth, view staffing, benefits event. Okay. Okay, let me pick this. This is going to be more relevant for, yeah, okay. See, this particular task is relevant to, or it's related to rather, editing your dependent date of birth information. For example, you're going to be joining a new organization, or if you're going to have any life event, either marriage or childbirth or anything, and you want to add a new dependent. So the first thing you will do is this particular information, because of your life event, your benefits event or benefits detail of your dependent has to be added at two places. One, in your master HR data, which is your personal data. That is number one. And number two, it needs to be added to your benefits information. It needs to be added to your benefits information because your child or your spouse has to be added to your benefits. So that is where these two functional areas come in. You're clear on this? So when I say dependent date of birth information, that is part of two functional areas of an employee. One, the core master information that you store in your personal data or your core HCM. The second is in your benefits information, whereby your dependents are going to get certain probably medical, retirals, or other relevant benefits information. That is why we say this particular task is part of both benefits and personal data functional area. And if I go across to the security, each particular task in the relevant functional area is going to have different securities. Is going to have different security. For example, we have one over here which is called as self-service dependence. And what this means is, as an employee as self, you will be able to add dependents, but this is at a benefits level. This is at a benefits level. Say because of your life event, you can choose to add or edit your dependents, maybe your childbirth or your marriage, so you can add your spouse information. And this is at a benefits level, and who's permitted to do it is employee as self. And the dependent information relevant security policy. Crap, I didn't click anything, it just refreshed. I don't know what. Just give me a minute, let me go back to that. Come on. This particular date of birth information of dependent, like I said, is maintained in multiple places. That's why I took that particular example. So I have it over. Edit date of birth, Expresso reports, and where's the task? Yeah. So if I go to this particular date of birth information, if you see over here, one, it is available at employee self-service dependence, and this is part of my benefits functional area because I as an employee can directly go and edit my dependence date of birth information in case of any life events. Life events are commonly called as any kind of childbirth, marriage, death of your dependents. All these are called as life events. All right, so in that particular scenario, I may want to edit, add, or remove one or more of my dependents, and my coverage and everything is also going to be dependent on that. All right. Next, as a worker data dependence, this is more relevant if you want to change the benefit information of dependence of another worker. This is not self, but this is for somebody else. You may be part of a benefits administrator. You may be part of a support group or a support your own HR support group, which is going to be doing all the day-to-day tasks, wherein they go and add and edit the dependent information of certain workers. And again, this is part of two different functional areas, both at benefits and at personal data level. And here you see a long list of 70 plus security groups who are do it. But in a real life, this could be something like a HR support group and probably your benefits administrator and certain other admin groups. Only those folks will be able to do it. You don't usually see a long list of 70 or 80 odd folks in such a thing. And if tomorrow you come across an issue where people say that you are not able to edit the dependent information or the dependent date of birth information of a worker's dependent, this is the domain and the security policy that I would be looking at. I just have to click over here, right click, and go to this particular domain. And if I want to make some changes, I will go and make changes over there. This is a very important page which we usually use for debugging purposes. And from here I can traverse to the security policy. In a nutshell, it's going to give me all the details of that particular security policy, including the permission that I might require in order to carry out a task. So go ahead today and find out some common tasks. So what I would rather suggest is go to any worker profile, and from the worker profile, pick any commonly available task. You just have to go to any worker, Logan McNeil, or any worker, go to actions and pick any of these tasks over here. Any of the tasks. You can go to compensation, job change, you can go to personal information, anything. I picked up personal information because very common task. You can pick any of these tasks over here and say edit personal information. Come to view security for securable item and then view this particular information, and trust me, you will understand a lot of things about security just by this one page alone. And this is the reverse of what we saw in terms of what a domain does. So if I want to find out which domain, which particular business process is driving all of this, this is where I come to. So now let's just move on with our deck. So what we have seen over here in terms of configurable security point. So like I said earlier, in a domain security policy, always like what I said was earlier, who can do what is what a security policy is. And in a domain, I say, or I'm going to be controlling who is going to be doing what, which is edit or view in a domain. That is what is a domain security policy. Who in my security group can do what task action, which is more relevant to either a task, or I can view or edit any specific information. That is what is driven in my domain security policy. And whereas in my business process security policy, I'm going to say who, which security group or a user group is going to be able to do which action or event in my business process or business process event. Who can do an initiate, who can do an approve, who can do a review, who can do a configuration task, who can do whatever not it is. So that is what is my business process security policy. All right, next. This is more relevant to the domain security policies for any functional area. So this is like for my personal data functional area, what are the different domains and securities and everything. Uh, this particular page, okay, so I don't know whether I want to take this, but let me just show you this particular page alone. Okay, this is the bigger screen over here. All right, so let me pick personal data over here. This is the overall functional area level domain security policy for personal data, which is a functional area. And if you see for the entire functional area, what are the different domains available? And again, if you see over here, we have multiple ones. Some of them could have just a notepad icon. Some of them could have a folder icon. So if I go to my functional area domain security policies, I can view all the domains which are relevant to this particular functional area. Now I've taken personal data and I can have so much of information, so many domains over here. All of this is part of my personal data functional domain. And I can go to the one that we saw right now. So let me say date of birth. So person date of birth is one security policy which we have over here, and this again may have more child domains and everything as well. All right, so all of this information, all the security groups which are mentioned over here will be able to view, edit as per the permissions which we have given over here. And again, securable actions, the same securable actions that we saw over here as well. And if I'm just going to copy paste this in my view security for securable item, I'm going to be having the same screen which we saw earlier as well. All right, it's just that I'm just going back in circles to where we came or what we saw. Just that everything can be done in multiple ways in Workday. All right, and this is the purpose of my domain security policy for my entire functional area. Clear? Likewise, I may have umpteen number of other functional areas, be it payroll, absence, time tracking. I can have anything and everything around the world. All right, clear on this? Let's move on to the next. So about domain security policies for functional area. So probably today, as an activity, what I want you to do is check if you are able to view one or more of the domain security policy for a functional area. I've shown you personal data. You can pick for others as well. Just go through this particular screen over here and find out what exactly this does. And if you want, you can go back to the view security for securable items and find out the relevant menu from where they can be triggered. All right, from where they can be triggered. Why I picked up personal data is, if you're having personal data, it is very, very easy for you to play around with the task, because you can choose Logan McNeil, Joy Banks, or Carol Lee's profile, and you can play around with this. And again, I'm perfectly fine for you to edit any of the personal data domain, but ensure that you do it only for your own security group that you are going to be creating, either a role-based or a user-based security group. Play around with only the ones that you are creating. Do not meddle with anything that has already been created or somebody else's security groups. Play around with only your own thing. I've already taught you about how to do it. Do it only with yours, because security, if you're going to meddle with it, it's going to be nasty business. Let me just tell you that. From my own experience, there have been so many instances where security has been goofed up. So don't ever play around with security. It's going to be really, really nasty. All right. And the next thing we saw about domain security policy for a functional area. And again, how exactly this particular domain functional area comes down to is what is given over here. All right. So like I said, for a business process area, what are the domain, sorry, what are the in a functional area? I think I just went through with a different one. So if I see over here, I saw about domain security policy for functional area. Similarly, I can have something called as business process security policy for a functional area. Say, for example, let me take, or let me go in the reverse order. Since we have already seen about hire, I will pick hire over here and then show you. Over here, I'm putting it as, I'm choosing it as hire. And over here, okay, let me just give it as hire over here. It'll just come up. All right. Oh, not the pre-hire process. Something's goofed up. And I think somebody was asking me what are the different business processes which we have in the system. This is more or like all the business processes that we have in the system, which could be numbering over 100. Over 100, that's just a pessimistic estimate, right? We may have more than 100 business processes, but just a pessimistic number is like we have over 100 business processes. All right. And for staffing, sorry, for hire, your functional area is going to be staffing business process, staffing functional area. And I'm going to be showing you about the business process security policy for any functional area. Since we have seen about the hire, change job, and other business process, which are all part of my staffing functional area, I will show you around this particular functional areas business process security policy as well. So in a nutshell, whatever we saw in the hire business process, it's going to be available over here. All of these are available. And again, some of them are folders and some of them are icons with a folder and a notepad over here, because all of these are going to have child sub process or sub business process functional processes as well. All right. So everything is going to have child actions, which are going to be having inheritance and everything relevant to them as well. All right. So that is why it is. And again, I can have assigned pay groups, so many different tasks relevant to this, because this business process type is just going to be showing us assign pay group, which is the overall high level business process type. And under that, I can have multiple child security policies relevant to this particular business process security policy. All right. This is the same as what we saw in the business process policy. In my business process policy, so let me just open that as well. I just go to BP hire. Just picking randomly anything, because like I said, the business process policy, security policy is going to be same for all of the higher business process definition. This is going to be the same. Okay, that is number one. And number two, all of this that you see over here is what is translated over here or transposed over here. And again, I may have some additional tasks over here, like an assignment of a pay group, costing allocation, etc. Why these are all coming is because these are sub business processes which can be triggered from my higher BP. These are sub business processes which can be triggered from there, and where I can view my sub business processes. Remember, we saw about business process config options. So all the sub business processes in my higher business processes and the relevant sub processes and their security permissions are also displayed in here. If you see, for my higher business process, if I scroll to the right in my business process configuration options, I can see so many sub business processes. All right, after complete, I see here so many sub business processes over here. Assign pay group and so many sub business processes, assign establishments, work schedules, and all of these are called as sub BPs. And if I come across over here to my business process security, business security policy, you may ask me a question, why all of these are not available in my BP security policy? Because these are sub BPs. And this is an overall picture of all the business process actions, be it sub BPs or tasks which can be triggered from my higher BP, and what are the relevant permissions that I give it that I can give over here. All of that is available. Clear on this, where this is coming from? Because you may ask me a question, why all of these are not available in my sub BPs. Some of them may not be available because they are triggered as a part of my sub BP. And if I go to assign cost allocation over here in the BP security policy, you can see that as well, because this is another sub business process. Assign costing allocation is another business process by itself, and it has its own security policies. And again, some of the business process security policies could be inherited from my higher BP as well. Clear? All that inheritance concept is going to kick in over here as well. The next one is again the same concept that we have been seeing all along. A worker, like I said, is going to be tied to a job or a position, and again the job or the position can be mapped to an assignable role over here. Why I said was assignable role could be something like a manager, which could in turn be a position or a job which could be tied to an incumbent worker in my organization. This is fairly a straightforward one because we are tagging it directly to a job or a position. Like I said, a managerial position, a person who's going to be a manager in a supervisory organization is going to continue to have all the privileges. That is why we have the role-based security groups assigned at a superorg level, and that superorg level is going to have specific roles that is again going to be tied to the job or a position. All right, clear? And next one, the common roles which we may have assigned over here, which could be like a manager, matrix manager, security partner, very common ones which we may have over there. And in terms of user-based security groups as well, we may have so many user-based security groups, and I can have somebody like an absence partner. And again, all of these are specific roles which I can assign either at a supervisory organization level or at a location level. Again, absence partners are usually assigned at a location level rather than at a supervisory organization level, because my supervisory organization could probably be based out of multiple locations. and each location may have one or more local federal laws which are applicable. Because of that, I may not actually have somebody at a super level, and it is better for me to have it at a location hierarchy level. Like I said, of course, it is very, very individualistic based on what my organization implementation is going to look like. And again, payroll partner, HR partner, compensation, benefits, all of this can be assigned either at a support, company, location, or cost center level. Usually payroll folks are from the finance teams, and it is only prudent to have it at the cost center level. But again, purely depends on your implementation, because some organizations may have a really, really strong implementation and design methodology by which I would say that I want folks only in the finance department to be a payroll partner or something. Purely depends, but recommended to have it at a cost center level rather than having it at a location or a support level. All right. Next, security concept, the same what we have seen so far. What can I see about a worker who has the access, and what can I do to this particular worker? Essentially, who can do what? That's what this is going to determine. That is what security is in. So for whatever we have seen, all the security concept, only thing that it deals with is who can do what. And if you can have answers to this particular question, security is fairly simple for anybody. Just have to determine who can do what. And we'll just see all of that. And we saw about role-based security groups, and we saw about user-based security groups as well. So what can be assigned and how this can be assigned. Process maintenance security groups, let's not get into this now. Let's not get into this now, because more into the employee self and manager self and all that we have seen so far. Let's not get into that for now. That's going to be a little bit more overwhelming for you. For now, remember that employee self, manager self, we have so many such security groups as well. But just hold your horses for now. I don't want to get into that. We will do this towards the end of this particular course. Okay. Next, we saw about user-based security groups. This is going to be like a user-based security group is going to be more directly assigned to a user directly rather than having a role assignment and then following that particular hierarchy. This is going to be directly assigned to any specific individual, and usually across any organization, I will only have a handful of people who are going to be user-based security group, because this security group or security group based users are considered to be the niche ones, and they usually have so much of privileges attached to them. They can do so many things across the entire tenant, including security, including compensation relevant changes, payroll relevant stuff, and everything and whatnot. And that is why I said this is going to be a niche group. And one activity that I want you to do is pick up any of the user-based security group. You can choose any of the administrative ones. You have HR admin, payroll admin, compensation admin, security admin. Any of these administrator tasks or administrator security groups, go through their security group, find out what are the domains and the business processes to which they have the access, and you'll be really, really surprised, because they'll have a big laundry list of actions which they can do, and virtually all the administrators, you can just go to view security group, and you can go to any of the security group, any of the administrator user based security groups. How I can do is I can go to view security group, and I can go to security groups over here, and then I come to the bottom. If I come to the bottom, I will see user based security groups. I come to the last one. I see user-based security groups. And if I come over here, I see so many different user-based security groups. I'll see absence, I will see payroll, I will see HR, I will see security, recruiting, I will see so many of them. What I want you to do is pick any one or few of them at least and go through all the accesses which they will be having, and you'll be surprised to see the amount of privileges that they have. And usually this particular absence administrator, for example, will have access to the entire absence functional area. Similarly, a payroll administrator will have access to the entire payroll functional area. So which means all the domains and all the security business processes, the absence administrator will have entire access to do anything and everything. And one more trivia for you. Probably when you had gone to the business process security configuration, I taught you about reassignment. Any of the business process, you can check any of the business process, hire, change job, personal information, any of them. Only administrator security groups like a business process administrator, security administrator, or other HR or other relevant functional area level administrators will have access to reassign any business process reassignments. Only those administrators will have access to it. You can go and check it as well. So now what I'm just trying to say is all of that what we have seen so far in BP security policy and domain security policies, just want you to go through that. That will make a lot of meaning for you. And you will see that here itself, if I see over here, I will probably have access to all the business processes, and I'll have edit and administrator level privileges to all the business process types which are part of absence. That is usually the way we configure any administrator user security group. Clear on this? And probably you can go to business process as well. You will see the absence administrator or HR administrator, recruiting administrator, anybody. You will see that they will have all the privileges, be it approve, deny, view, review, initiate, everything will be exclusively available to the respective functional area user-based admin. User-based security groups is only going to be a nutshell, but they are kind of the super users in my tenant. And that is why we don't restrict them to just a specific group or a role or something. They are going to be kind of super users. That is the common usage, but I can have other users as well based on my requirement. Next, again, we've already seen about role-based security groups. We are going to be assigning it to a specific role, and we have only seen about constrained, and I do not want to go into unconstrained for now because that's going to be another topic, and that's going to be a little bit more different for you as well. So we will take that towards the end of this course, probably as a part of additional ones if we have the time, and whatever we have at that time, we'll see that. But for now, just remember that we're going to see only constrained role-based security groups, which I'm going to be assigning it to either my support, location, cost centers, or company, of course. I will have it assigned specific to my support or role, support or company or other places. And based on the role, I'm going to be assigning them specific privileges. All right, clear on this? And like I said, a difference between a user-based and a role-based is role-based is more constrained to the place where I'm going to be assigning it, either at a company level, cost center, support, or location level. And they can have privileges only within that particular location, support, or cost center company that I'm going to be assigning. outside of that company, say for example, Nishant is assigned as a manager, which is a role-based security group, to his own supervisory organization, NS underscore support. Will he be able to perform the same higher action, higher business process to a support? Maybe not. That is why we say that role-based security groups are constrained and their scope is only within their own supervisory organization to which they are tagged to. Whereas a user-based security group like an administrator is going to be having a very, very vast scope within the entire organization. Their scope is unlimited. All right. That is what we say at as a organization based or an organization level user based security group. We do not constrain we do not constrain a user based group to just a specific role and a specific support company cost center location.